In the cold, endless space of the galaxy, the Empire's war fleet hung like a swarm of metal beasts. Hundreds of starships floated in formation, their weapons charged, engines humming, and lights flashing like a storm ready to break. The rebel planet below was silent, waiting for its final hour. On board the Empire's flagship, Dominion, Commander Valek stood tall on the bridge, his cold eyes fixed on the giant display screen. Around him, officers moved quickly, checking battle systems and giving reports. Everyone knew this battle would be over in minutes. The rebels had no real fleet, no weapons powerful enough to stop the Empire. Valek smiled. "End them," he ordered. The officers grinned. Lasers and missiles armed. Ships moved into attack positions. But before the order to fire was given, a sudden beep echoed through the control room. "Commander!" a young officer shouted. "An unknown contact approaching from deep space." Valek frowned. "Show it." The main screen switched to a low range. Image: a single ship, slowly moving toward the battle zone. It was huge, far larger than any rebel vessel. Its design was strange, sharp, dark, with heavy armor plates and no known markings. The officer checked his data screen again. "It's not in our database, sir." No match in any known starship records. Another officer laughed. "Probably. Some junk trader who took a wrong turn." Valek waved his hand. "Ignore it. Continue preparations." But before they could, the ship sent out a short, clear message. "Entering battle zone." The bridge went quiet. That voice was human. Valek's eyes narrowed. Humans? They can't build a ship like that. Empire officers had long believed humans were weak, simple creatures who worked as miners, traders, and small colony builders. Earth was a forgotten world under Empire control. No one ever feared humans. "Scan it again," Valek ordered. The scanners tried, but the systems glitched. A second officer shouted, "Sir, its power readings are impossible." The numbers on the display made no sense. The ship's energy levels were rising fast, far above what even the Empire's dreadnoughts could handle. The ship's weapons appeared offline at first, but then one by one, weapon systems lit up. The officer's face turned pale. "Sir, that ship is combat ready." Valek clenched his jaw. "Impossible." Another officer added, "It's human-made." But no human can build this. Outside in space, the mysterious ship moved closer. Its black surface reflected no light. Massive engines pushed it forward smoothly. Its nameplate, almost hidden under layers of armor, slowly came into view. "Eclipse." A whisper ran through the bridge. "Eclipse. That's just an old story." Someone muttered. Legend spoke of a human warship built centuries ago, long before the Empire rose to power. It was said to be unstoppable, a ghost ship that disappeared after one battle. No one believed it ever existed. Valek scowled. "Prepare to destroy it." Ships in the fleet moved into formation. Missiles and plasma cannons pointed toward Eclipse. The commander gave the order. "All ships fire." Dozens of plasma bolts and missiles sped toward the approaching warship. Explosions lit up space. But when the light faded, Eclipse remained. Not a single scratch marked its black armor. The Empire bridge went silent. No one spoke. No one laughed. Quiet alarm beeped. The officer reported, voice shaking. "Sir, the ship's shields didn't even activate. It took those hits bare." Valek stepped forward. "What is that thing?" Another officer added, "Sir, it's charging its weapons." The main display flickered as Eclipse's weapon systems powered up. Red lights, unknown energy signatures, and ancient weapon bays opened along its hull. Thousands of cannons aimed toward the Empire fleet. Then, a single message was sent to the Empire command ship. "Your time is over." Valek's face turned white. He grabbed the console. Jam that signal. Target its engines. But no commands reached the fleet. One by one, Empire ships began reporting system failures. Communications blacked out. Weapon controls froze. Panic swept through the fleet like wildfire. What's happening? Valak demanded. No one had answers. Outside, Eclipse moved closer. Calm and unstoppable. As it passed one of the Empire's cruisers, the giant warship vanished. No explosion, no debris. It simply disappeared into nothing. Officers on the bridge began to tremble. Valak whispered to himself, "This can't be real." But it was. And it had only just begun. The Empire fleet floated in silence. The unknown human ship, called Eclipse, moved through the battle zone like a shadow, its dark surface reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Not a single Empire ship dared to attack now. Fear had crept into every officer's heart. Inside the command bridge of Dominion, Commander Valak stared at the main screen. His mind refused to believe what his eyes showed. That ship shouldn't exist, he muttered. The officers around him looked shaken. Some refused to meet his eyes. The name Eclipse had spread like wildfire through the fleet's communication channels. Old stories whispered among the junior crew. Stories of a ghost ship built by humans long ago. A ship that defied the Empire once and then vanished without a trace. Nobody believed it was real. Until now. "Commander, we're getting a message from High Command," an officer reported. Valak gritted his teeth. "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing a pale, older officer, Admiral Vorthus, head of Imperial Operations. His face was tight with fear. "Valak," the Admiral spoke quickly, "do not engage that ship. Fall back." Valak's eyes widened. "Sir, it's one ship. We can destroy it." "You don't understand," Vorthus interrupted. His voice dropped. "That ship was built by humans. Before the Empire conquered Earth. It was lost centuries ago. We believed it destroyed. But if it's returned, you must retreat immediately." Valak swallowed hard. Even the Admiral sounded terrified. How can humans build something like that? Valak asked. Vorthus glanced to the side, as if someone else was in the room with him. Then he spoke softly, almost like a confession. "Because humans were never weak. We only made you believe they were." A transmission cut off. Valak turned to his officers. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, a young officer named Karn whispered, "Commander, my grandfather told me a story when I was a child, about a human warship called Eclipse. He said it could destroy entire fleets alone, that it disappeared during the old wars. But one day it would return." Valak snapped. "Superstitions, prepare to fire again." But even as he gave the order, Karn's words gnawed at his mind. The legend was alive in front of him. Outside. Eclipse drifted closer. Its massive weapon bays opened. Strange, ancient weapons lined its hull. Not Empire-made, not Rebel tech. Devices so advanced, the Empire's sensors couldn't even identify them. Bright red and blue lights glowed along its sides. The Rebel planet below picked up a coded message from Eclipse. The Rebel leaders, hiding in underground shelters, stared in shock as a simple text appeared. "Stay clear. Targeting hostile fleet." The Rebels didn't know where the message came from, but hope returned to their hearts. They sent an emergency broadcast to all their fighters. "Stand down. An unknown ally has arrived." Back in space, Valak realized it was now or never. Ships, full assault. Everything we have. Missiles, plasma storms, and energy bolts lit up the darkness. A wave of power rushed toward Eclipse. For a moment, Valak hoped maybe, just maybe, numbers would win. But the Eclipse didn't even move. It absorbed the entire storm of attacks. Its armor didn't crack. Its shields didn't flicker. It stood untouched. Valak's jaw clenched. Officers on his bridge backed away from their stations. Then, Eclipse responded. The ship's massive forward cannons lit up, glowing like newborn stars. A single red beam fired from its front, slicing through space. One of the Empire's largest. Warship's Oblivion vanished instantly. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Panic exploded through the Empire fleet. "Pull back," one captain shouted over comms. "It's impossible." Another screamed, "No ship can do this." Valak's hands trembled. His fleet was crumbling. And then Eclipse said the final message before its next attack. "Your judgment has arrived." On distant planets, Empire-controlled colonies picked up the broadcast. Across slave worlds, labor camps, and mining outposts, humans who had lived under the Empire's rule heard the ancient ship's voice. Hope spread like wildfire. Eclipse fired again. Another Empire ship gone. The Empire's greatest weapon wasn't enough. Their pride, their numbers, their arrogance, nothing could stop what was coming. Valak fell into his chair, his voice hollow. Where did they build that thing? But no one answered. No one knew. Outside, Eclipse's weapon bays remained open. Its engines hummed softly, ready for more. And far away in deep space, unknown human fleets began to stir, their ships awakening from long silence. The galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humans were never weak. They were only waiting. Asterisk. The cold darkness of space had turned deadly silent. The giant warship Eclipse floated in the middle of the Empire fleet, its massive weapons glowing like stars ready to burn. No one spoke. No one moved. The Empire's proud fleet, once fearless, now felt a strange, ancient fear they didn't understand. Inside the Empire flagship Dominion, Commander Valak sat frozen in his chair. His officers stared at their screens, hoping for answers, but finding only one horrifying truth. Nothing could stop Eclipse. Valak slammed his fist on the console. Fire everything we have. Now, across the fleet, plasma cannons powered up. Missiles locked onto Eclipse. Energy beams charged, painting bright lines across space. Every ship, from the smallest gunboat to the Empire's massive dreadnoughts, aimed their weapons at the same target. In seconds, a storm of light and destruction was unleashed. The sky exploded. Missiles screamed through space. Plasma waves burned in every direction. The fleet fired nonstop, desperate to bury Eclipse under the largest attack in Imperial history. For a brief moment, Valak felt a small flicker of hope. Nothing can survive. That, one officer whispered. But as the light faded and the space dust cleared, the Eclipse remained. Untouched. Not a scratch. Its black surface still cold and perfect. Its weapon bays still open. Its engines humming softly like a sleeping giant. A heavy silence fell over the fleet. Impossible. Valak whispered. Then, Eclipse fired back. Without warning, thousands of hidden gun ports along its sides opened. Strange, ancient weapons appeared. No one on any Empire ship had ever seen devices like these. Bright red beams, deep blue plasma cannons, and silver projectiles, moving faster than light, raced toward the Empire ship's. In an instant, an Empire cruiser was struck. It didn't explode. It didn't even leave debris. The ship simply vanished. Erased from existence. An officer screamed. They're just disappearing. Another blast fired. 2 more ships vanished. Inside Dominion's command center, panic broke out. Retreat! Someone shouted. No, hold your ground. Valak barked, though his voice shook. But the fleet was breaking apart. Ships turned, desperate to escape. Some tried to hide behind others. The mighty Empire fleet, built to conquer worlds, now scattered like frightened birds. Eclipse didn't chase. It didn't need to dot its weapons, picked targets one by one, calmly. Erasing ships from the sky dot at the same time, a young human captain aboard Eclipse sat quietly in the command chair. His name was Eric Voss. His face showed no emotion, only cold, sharp focus. Target Dreadnought, he said. The officer beside him, a woman named Captain Rylan, smiled slightly. With pleasure. Eclipse's largest forward cannon lit up. Energy gathered, pulling light itself into a single point. The Empire's most powerful dreadnought, Ravager, turned to flee. But it was too late. A single beam fired dot in less than a second. The massive ship was gone. Back on Dominion, the bridge went silent again. Valak's face lost all color. His hands trembled. How is this possible? He whispered. An officer stammered. Sir, this isn't war. It's execution. All at once, Empire officers realized they were not facing an ordinary enemy. This wasn't a rebel fleet, not some hidden colony. This was something ancient, something built for one reason, to destroy. Valak's command fell apart. Messages from terrified captains flooded the comms. Asterisk, pulling back. Asterisk, we're being erased. Nothing's working. And then, as if things couldn't get worse, sensors picked up new contacts entering the system. More human ships, small at first. Corvettes, gunships, and heavy cruisers. Then larger ones followed. Dozens of them, appearing from deep space, joining Eclipse in formation. The officers on Dominion watched in horror as scanners tried to count them. The numbers rose higher and higher. One officer whispered, "We thought." Humans were gone, but they were waiting. The rebel planet below cheered. Civilians in shelters and old soldiers hiding underground wept in disbelief. No one had ever come to help them before. Now, a ghost ship and a hidden human fleet had arrived to end the nightmare. Inside Eclipse, Captain Eric Voss looked at the incoming Empire ships. "Clean the sky," he ordered. Weapons powered up. The battle wasn't over yet, but the Empire was already finished. Across the galaxy, in far-off colonies and hidden outposts, stories spread. The Eclipse had returned, and this time, it wasn't alone. Asterisk, the battle outside was turning into a massacre. The once mighty Empire fleet was falling apart, its ships vanishing one by one under the terrifying power of the Eclipse and the rising human fleet. Every laser, missile, and plasma shot fired at the humans was useless. The Empire's greatest weapons had failed, but it wasn't just the firepower that frightened them. It was the impossible question. Where did humans get this power? Inside the Empire flagship Dominion, Commander Valak sat frozen in his command chair. Around him, officers shouted and alarm screamed, but his mind was trapped in one memory. A story. A simple story his grandfather told him when he was a boy. It was about Earth. Not the weak, broken planet the Empire claimed it was, but a world of warriors, builders, and dreamers. A planet that had once stood against the old empires long before Valak's time. A world that built a ship called Eclipse. Valak had laughed at the story back then. But now, the ghost ship was real, and it was killing everything in its path. "Commander," a young officer whispered beside him, his voice tight with fear. Why didn't they stop this before?" Valak's lips barely moved. "Because we believed the lies." And he was right. For centuries, the Empire had taught its people that humans were weak, that Earth had fallen early in the war, that humans made poor soldiers, and only worked as miners, farmers, and cheap labor. No one questioned it. No one asked about the old battles or missing records. The truth was buried deep, far away. Aboard the Eclipse, Captain Eric Voss stood before a large display screen. It showed old images, battles long forgotten, worlds lost, and secret projects. Hidden by time around him, his officers watched silently. Captain Ryland spoke softly. They never saw it coming. Voss nodded. They thought by erasing our history, they erased our strength, but we remembered. The eclipse was never destroyed. In the final days of the Old War, when the Empire's forces overwhelmed Earth, a handful of brilliant human engineers and soldiers escaped. They carried the last warship with them, badly damaged, almost forgotten. They hid it deep in the uncharted sectors of space. Beyond Empire control, human survivors built secret colonies. In the shadows of dead worlds and silent asteroids, they rebuilt, slowly, quietly, and as the Empire grew overconfident, thinking the last of the human warriors were gone, those survivors raised their children with one message. Wait, one day, the eclipse will rise again. Decades turned into centuries. The Empire's pride made them blind. They believed their own lies, and now their judgment had arrived. Back on Dominion, alarms flashed. New human fleet entering the system. An officer shouted. Valek's face paled. The scanner screen filled with blips. Ships of every size, some old, some brand new. Ships with human designs, strange weapons, and unfamiliar markings. They came from deep space, from dead sectors, from ancient hiding places. The officer beside Valek stammered, "Where? Where did they come from?" No one answered. On the rebel planet below, people poured out of shelters. They pointed to the sky as new human warships appeared, forming a protective ring around their world. Children cheered. Old soldiers wept. For the first time in centuries, Earth's children had returned. In the command center of the eclipse, Voss turned to his officers. "Send the message," he ordered. A young officer activated the ancient communications system. Across every channel, on every Empire ship, space station, and occupied planet, a message appeared. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. Just 3 simple words. You remember everything. Empire commanders on distant worlds watched the message in horror. Governors who once ordered human colonies destroyed stared in shock. Soldiers who believed humans were weak now realized the greatest mistake of their lives. In the heart of the Empire's capital, High Command received the message. Panic spread through the halls. No one spoke. No one dared, because they all knew what was coming. Back on Eclipse, Captain Voss watched the Empire fleet breaking apart. "This is only the beginning," he said. His officers nodded. For years, human survivors had kept records, tracking Empire ships, weapons, and leaders. Every name, every planet, every crime. Now, the list was complete, and the hunt was about to begin. In space, Eclipse's massive weapons powered up again. More human ships surrounded it. The Empire's age of control was ending. A new dawn was rising. Asterisk. The Empire's greatest fleet was no longer a fighting force. It was a scattered storm of broken ships, terrified captains, and officers shouting orders that no one followed. In the dark space above the rebel planet, fire and wreckage floated. Like dead stars. Eclipse stood at the center of it all, silent, cold, and unstoppable. Inside the Empire's flagship Dominion, Commander Valek stared at the display screen. His officers no longer shouted. Some had abandoned their posts. Others simply stood motionless, eyes wide in horror. No one spoke the obvious truth. The Empire was finished. Valek's hand shook as he reached for the command console. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Request reinforcements." But no signal went out. The communications officer swallowed hard. "Sir, all long-range systems are gone." Valek's breath caught in his throat. "How?" A voice behind him, tired and broken, answered. They've already taken the cum relays, sir. They've cut us off. It was over. Valak looked around. Men and women he had known for years, proud officers once loyal to the Empire, now looked like ghosts. The myths they believed in, the untouchable Empire, the weak humans, had been shattered in a single battle. Outside, Eclipse's fleet tightened its grip. More human ships arrived from deep space. Some were small strike craft. Others were massive dreadnoughts with ancient hull designs no Empire sensor could identify. The rebel planet below sent a message to the Eclipse. Who are you? The answer was simple. The ones you were told had vanished. We are Earthborn. Hope exploded across the rebel world. People shouted in the streets. Old soldiers embraced their families. The dark skies that once promised death now held the light of freedom dot inside the Empire's central command. Miles away on the capital planet, panic spread faster than news of the battle's loss. Admirals argued. Governors shouted over communications. Some demanded a final attack. Others begged for peace. None of them had real answers. On every screen across the Empire, one message played over and over. We remember everything. Citizens who had never questioned their leaders began to whisper. Soldiers on distant worlds lowered their weapons. The fear the Empire had used to control the galaxy for generations was crumbling. Aboard Eclipse, Captain Eric Voss stood calm, watching the final phase begin. Target their command ships, he ordered. Captain Ryland smiled. With pleasure. Across the human fleet, weapons powered up. Beams of red, blue, and silver light filled the space between stars. In one coordinated strike. The remaining Empire flagships vanished, one by one. The dreadnought Obsidian Crown disappeared first, then Deathstorm, then Iron Fortress. Ships that had led invasions for decades fell in seconds. The last to go was Dominion. Inside its bridge, Valak sat quietly. He knew there would be no escape. The escape pods were locked. The engines offline. The screen showed Eclipse, now right in front of them. Valak took a long, trembling breath. They waited. All this time. A final message from Eclipse appeared. On his screen, your Empire ends today. And then the beam fired. Aboard Eclipse, no one celebrated. There was no cheering. No one spoke of victory. They simply moved to the next target. On every planet where humans had been slaves, the chains began to fall. Labor camps shut down. Soldiers fled their posts. Leaders vanished into the dark. On the Empire's capital world, riots broke out. Statues of long-dead emperors crashed to the ground. Citizens covered their walls with a single word: remember. In secret, human underground groups revealed themselves. They opened hidden caches of old weapons. For the first time in centuries, they raised the old Earth banners in public. The galaxy was changing. Eclipse's fleet began transmitting orders to rebel forces and human colonies. The message was clear. This galaxy belongs to no tyrant. All species shall be free. And across the stars, other alien species, once too afraid to fight, began to rise. The death of the Empire had become more than a battle. It was the start of a new era. Inside Eclipse, Captain Voss sat in his chair as reports of collapsing Empire worlds poured in. Should we pursue the surviving ships? Captain Ryland asked. Voss shook his head. No, let them run. Let them carry the fear with them. The galaxy knows now. He stood and looked at the stars beyond the glass. The Empire fell not because we were strong, he said softly, but because they believed we were weak. His officers nodded. Outside, the last of the Empire's fleet burned. The rebel world was safe. The survivors cheered. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. There were other places to free. Other tyrants to face. The galaxy was wide, and Eclipse's duty was far from done. In deep space, more human warships waited, silent, ancient, patient. And somewhere, the old leaders of the Empire fled into the shadows, knowing that from now on, no one would forget the name, humanity. The battle was over. The great warships of the Empire, once feared across 1,000 star systems, were gone. Their wreckage drifted silently through the empty skies. The bright weapons that had lit up the darkness moments ago had faded. Now the stars shone quietly, watching as a new future began. The human warship Eclipse floated in the middle of the battlefield. Its black hull carried the scars of ancient battles, yet it still moved like a ghost, powerful, proud, and unbroken. Inside the command center, Captain Eric Voss stood in silence. His officers gathered around him, watching the displays show empty space where once the Empire's greatest fleet had stood. Status? Voss asked calmly. Captain Ryland smiled. Enemy fleet gone. No resistance remains. Voss took a breath. He had waited for this moment his entire life. So had his ancestors. The promise made in the ashes of old Earth was now fulfilled. Transmit to all allied ships. The officer sent the message out into the void. Across every human vessel, on rebel worlds and secret colonies hiding in the shadows. A simple final. Order arrived. Stand down. The skies are ours. On the rebel planet below, people filled the streets. Children laughed for the first time in years. Old men and women raised their faces to the sky. The humans who had lived in hiding stepped forward, their fear lifted. Flags once forbidden fluttered in the wind. The ancient Earth banners, blue, white, and silver, returned to the skies. But this was more than a human victory. On distant worlds once ruled by the Empire, other species watched the battles end in shock. For generations, they believed. No one could stand against imperial power. Now they saw something different. They saw freedom was possible. A message from Eclipse reached every world, in every language. No more chains. No more tyrants. This galaxy belongs to the free. Across Empire-occupied worlds, soldiers laid down their weapons. Labor camps opened their gates. Entire cities rose up. The old ways were crumbling. In the Empire's capital, the rulers had fled. Empty streets and shattered statues stood where mighty voices once shouted commands. The citizens painted words on broken walls. We remember everything. And they did. In deep space, more human fleets began to emerge. Ships hidden in old asteroid. Fields, abandoned mining stations, and dead sectors now came to life. Silent vessels that had waited for centuries received the signal they had been born for. The Dark Age was over. Back aboard Eclipse, Captain Voss watched the reports come in. Each one carried news of fallen outposts, liberated planets, and surrendered. Warships. The old Empire was collapsing like a dying star. Raylan stepped beside him. It's done, Eric. But Voss didn't smile. He knew something no one else spoke aloud. This war is over, he said quietly. But darkness will rise again. Somewhere. It always does. Raylan nodded, her face serious. Then we'll be ready. The crew of Eclipse understood what their ship truly was. Not a symbol of war, but a warning to any who would dare rule the free. It was a reminder written in ancient metal and starlight that humans never forgot. A final message was sent from Eclipse to the stars. The Watchers remain. Across the galaxy, free people whispered those words. Some wept, some raised their hands to the sky. All of them knew one truth. Humanity was not weak. It never was. It had waited. It had remembered. And when the time was right, it returned. Eclipse's engines powered up. The ship slowly turned, facing the distant, unknown stars. There were no cheers. No grand speeches. Captain Voss spoke one. Last command. Set course for deep space. Rylan raised an eyebrow. Another enemy? Voss shook his head. Not yet. But the galaxy is wide. And somewhere, someone will forget today. They always do. The crew understood. Eclipse moved forward, leaving behind the broken remains of the Empire, the cheering rebel world, and the stories it had written in blood and light. It became a shadow once more. A legend told in hushed voices, a ship spoken of by traders in dark taverns and in the night dreams of tyrants. A ship that would always return, because the humans who flew it carried something no Empire could destroy. A promise. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the dark reaches of unexplored space, the stars waited. For the day Eclipse would rise again. Asterisk.